Welcome to another episode of me teaching stuff. A bit scuffed right now, but I'm just trying to get everything working right now. But yeah, for some reason, Vroid Studio isn't showing up in my display right now. But oh well. Ah, let me test to see. Oh yeah, it's way too big right now. That makes sense. Okay, give me a second to scale everything down. Okay, tutorial for Vroid is a go in a few seconds. I just need to find a good way to scale this first. Yeah, this is fine. Okay, so if we are going to do a Vroid tutorial, first of all, I will need to teach you guys what Vroid is in the first place. Vroid is basically a thing which you can use to start your VTubing career, basically by making a model and or doing otherwise. So in this program, you can create like a custom model and everything, make like custom hair, change a bunch of parameters and everything, right? You've probably done something similar in one of those Pixiv apps, or maybe like one of those avatar creators in another game or something like that. However, in this one, you actually have a lot more customiz. You have a lot more ability to customize things in this program. So what this really allows you to do in the end, right, is make your own hair, add your own textures, and do a bunch of things which you normally wouldn't be able to, without actually knowing. Thank you for the lurk. And one of the things is that you will be able to do things without knowing how to 3D model and or do anything of the sort. So, for example, my model right here, right, like this entire model was done without any knowledge of 3D modeling, although I do know how to 3D model. But yeah, it's fairly quick and easy, and everything's automatically rigged up for whatever you need to do. So first of all, we will go through all the options over here. So the options over here are subcategorized into a bunch of things right here, right? And each one of these slightly warp the face. They're fairly, easy to understand each, and as they're all in like the leftmost position naturally, right? There's really no worry about like, playing around with them and messing anything up. These things are all fairly, user friendly and fairly easy to do, if you noticed, right, when I move this outer eye slant right here, you can physically see how like this outer eye changes slightly, as well as everything else right here. This pretty much goes on all of them, and they're subcategorized so that it's a bit easier for you to like know which part you're changing. And they're also subcategorized even more so into all of these editors right here. For example, there's more of these sliders over here on like the clothing editor, the body editor, and so on. Wait, my stream info is wrong. Give me 1 second to change it. Vroid tutorial. Vroid. Just chatting, I guess? Yeah, just chatting. There we go. Okay. Yeah, sorry for a slight hint of scuffness. But what can I do? So after you finish doing your face settings that like you want, right? Like let's say this is the face I want, right? If you want to go a bit more advanced, in the top left right here, right, you can see all the expressions. You can kind of edit them slightly to see like how all the expressions look when you're making expressions. Like for example, when I'm like make an E sound, right, how the mouth looks. And then after that, you have the textures themselves. So we have a nifty little texture editor over here. You see how everything's all like, in grayscale right now? That's because this grayscale right here allows you to color the things later within this base color and shade color panel right here. There's multiple layers. If you're an artist, you'll know what that does, right? And there's also this guide layer right here, which actually doesn't show up on the model. So what you can do is you can export this guide layer, or you can export any of these layers right here by right-clicking them, right? And then you can draw that in another program, or you can draw directly on the model itself. For example, if I'm gonna zoom in onto my model right here, right, I can draw on his eyebrow right here, see? And it will show up over here. Or I can draw over here, and it will show up on the model over here. That's the same for all these things right here, and that just allows you to like upload custom irises, custom skin patterns, other custom features, and that really lets you make your model look like its own thing, you know? Because as you can probably notice, most Vroid models look the same more or less at this point. However, there are very custom looking Vroid models, and there are models which look really unique as well. That's because people can make their own custom textures, and or they can, you know, make custom hair and clothing and all that stuff. You can get custom clothing from the internet, which I think is very useful, right? However, there are other things that you can do to make your, you know, model your own. Let me just, there we go. Okay, so let's see. So underneath each one of these options right here, you have more guides, more textures, more outlines and everything. And if you don't know what something is, like for example, you don't know what this thing is right here because you can't see where the teeth are, you can always use the expression, right? So that you can see how their mouth looks, right? So now I'm opening up the mouth. It's a bit creepy, I have to admit, right? But by opening up the mouth like this, right? Or it should have opened at least, you can see how like the teeth and everything changes. If you're not into, you know, changing the texture for whatever reason, right? You can also use these sliders right here, which are shown in each one of like the options most of the time, right? To change the color, the base color, and the shade color. One thing to note about shade color, however, is that in most programs, shade color will work. However, in VC Face, the compatibility is more or less based off of the lighting and everything of your character itself. So for example, in VC Face, right, this would normally look like a very flat texture other than the areas where it's solid. So that's just something to keep in mind, because normally when you make one of these models, right, you'll want to keep it more or less with a blank shade color or the same shade color as your base color. I just like keeping it black most of the time, but it's up to you. You'll need to play around with that. And since it's so easy to export and re-import, there's really no disadvantage to, you know, throwing it into the program you're using to animate your model and then throwing it out of the model you're animating, because this just allows you to like see how it actually looks and all that stuff. Okay, now since we've done so much on the face so far, or at least enough on the face that you can kind of get a picture, right? Yeah, you can kind of see where everything goes. If you're over the area where the thing applies to, right, it will actually give you this cursor right here, so you can draw on the model itself, and that's just useful so that you can mark where all the things are. For example, hey, I want a tattoo, so I can like draw a cross here, right? So that way, when I'm exporting this onto my actual model itself, I know where the tattoo is going to go, you know? Okay, so now we're gonna go on the hair editor. Let's just ignore how scuffed this guy's face looks right now, right? And look at how the hair works. So the hair has procedural groups, which allow you to make hair parts very quickly, right? You can color, you can, you know, do materials and all that. You can do the shade, which I normally wouldn't touch because, you know, the shade doesn't really affect much unless, you know, everything else is working. The highlight, which is your, you know, literally the highlight of your thing, as well as the outline. You can actually remove and like make the outline thicker within this program. However, I'm sure you get what that does. Excuse me. Okay, so this width right here basically changes how thick the texture is. The highlight position, right, changes how high the highlight is, if at all. So you can like really make it look a bit different for each one of these, I guess. And the offset. There's a bunch of other parameters, and if you have any questions, please say so in chat. I would be more than happy to help. But there's a bunch of parameters as well. For example, how thick each one of the hairs are, like, you know, all the other things. The thickness refers to it inside the three-dimensional space, because each one of these hairs actually do have thickness, right? So for example, you see how like the nose right here is partially going through. If I make it thick enough, the nose won't like clip through because it's just that thick at that point, you know? And then there's this thing right here, which allows you to change how thick it is from a cross section. There's a bunch of presets and a bunch of things you can play around with, as well as like, you know, the location and everything else. So this just allows you to do like quick work. So for my model, right, I did a lot of that on the back right here, because it just saved me a lot of time, because no one's going to be looking at the hair back here, right? So it's going to be easier to just skimp out on that than, you know, do everything at the start. Okay, I'm going to just remove this for now. Okay, next thing, the freehand group, right? The freehand group is where this program actually gets interesting. So you know how in most programs you have like default hairs they can throw and like throw off your model. Well, on this one right here, you can move these nodes right here. You see these nodes? That does it in like all four directions pretty much. However, slightly changed on each direction. However, what you can do with these nodes, right, is once they're in the position you want, right. So, for example, you see how this has a cone looping over the hair right here. It allows you to draw over it, and then it actually follows the shape of the cone itself. And that allows you a lot of freedom in like how you want your hair to be. For example, if let's say I want my hair to have a very pronounced like a jut up and then back down, right? It does that, right? And then even if it's very wonky like this, right, I can actually make the thing a physics based thing by going to bone, right, picking the hair, right, it will light up the correct hair, see, and then generate bone group. Either that, or I can just right click and create a bone. I'm fairly sure. Yeah, create bone group right here, and that allows me to basically change the physics of the hair itself. For example, lower the fixed count, the amount of bone counts, the hit radius of each one of these, and how stiff it is, right? And then if I go into the camera slash exporter, I can actually see how the physics looks on here. So I'm gonna just add the wind for a second, right? And then the hair should be somewhat, physics based now, depending on how the wind looks and all that other jazz. So that's actually really useful because you can make your like front hair like mine move, or like if you see on my model, the top of my hair moves, right, and the back of my hair moves. See? So that just allows you to do a bunch of stuff like that. You see how my hair on the left side is blue? Like how my hair right here, like where on the left side of my model, the right side for you, is slightly blue. That's because I use shade color. Shade color used to not apply to models at all, however, now applies, which is really nice. So if you make another freehand group, you actually get more nets, right? So for example, I have another net right here, right? And I can make another one for another shape right here, right? So there's this freehand group right here. There's this freehand group right here. I can change up this net right here so the hair goes like closer to the head. I can do all that stuff, right? And since I haven't made bones for anything else right here, right? What happens is these hairs are static. They don't move at all, even with wind. Meanwhile, this hair always moves with wind because of the bone groups. And this allows you to like also change how optimized your model is with physics. For example, you can lower the amount of bones, you can increase the amount of bones, you can change how much the bones move and all that stuff. And yeah, I find that really nice to have in general because it allows me to give a lot of freedom. For example, hey, I don't want the bone to move here, right? So you see how the bone goes all the way down there? I can actually change the fixed point, right? So that the bone only exists in the front half here. So everything here up to here until the first bone, right, doesn't move at all. So you see how like now this part itself is static, but everything else is somewhat affected by the wind. That's kind of what changing the bone root fixed area is. Okay, so now we'll go to some other things that you can do with hair. As with everything in this program, right, there are no quote unquote. Thank you, Ray. I'm trying my best. And yes, my model is very scuffed right now. I'm just trying to show the features. But as with everything in this program, right, you can change all the textures, right? So for example, this texture right here, right, I can change the color, right? I can draw over it, see? As well as doing other things such as if I click duplicate right here, it will let me do another hair color, right? And this basically sets a new material for the hair. So now if I make a new, a new drawing or whatever, like add a new freehand group, right? And I draw with this instead. How do I do that? I can't. Oh, yeah. Here, right? This hair is obviously a different color than the other hairs, right? And if I change this hair color, right, I can change everything but that hair. So that allows you to, kind of just make textures for individual hair groups. And that way you can like have multiple textures for your hair itself. And that gives you a lot of freedom for, well, yeah, like, making different hairstyles, hair colors, different textures for each individual strand of hair if you really wanted. However, remember, the more textures and the more bone groups you have, the more stuff that will happen. So now you can see how both of these have like, the same textures and layers and everything. However, if I draw different things on this front hair right here, it will not affect the hairs on the back. So that's what duplicate does. However, one thing which I really wish they would add, you can't actually remove models or materials from your models themselves. If you make a material, it is stuck on that model. So, if you're doing something of the sort, save a lot. There's mirror motion right here, which allows you to make sure that your hair is symmetrical on both sides. And yeah, my guy is obviously very scuffed, but I shall show you the next interesting feature of this thing. So you see generate bone right here. Generate bone, right, allows you to automatically add bone groups to your model. So now it's pretty much bone groups that are close to each other, and now the bones will pretty much be animated in a way which looks semi-decent for the model. Semi-decent in the way that my model will never look semi-decent because I am barely giving any effort, but I shall show you guys how a slightly better looking model looks later, because there's a lot of examples as well as my own model right here. My model isn't the best, however, if you do want to see a better model, that will be coming up shortly. Okay, so next thing, what is it? The clothing editor, right? Wait, the body editor is next. Sorry. So the body editor allows you to change how your character looks. For example, you can make them very short, right? Or you can make them a lot taller. You can make their proportions different, like their head a lot bigger, their shoulders a lot broader, and their waist a lot, shorter. A bunch of other options right here, as well as with everything, being able to change how all, the textures and everything underneath the program look. So yes, you can have a different skin color. I have seen different skin color packs for this, right? Or if you're feeling lazy, right? I want to be a blue alien now, so I won't offend anyone, but now my character's skin is all blue, This probably isn't the best way because some people have made actual, skin editing, skin textures that you can import directly into your program. It's this easy. Right click onto default image, import, and then you can import whatever object you want. So for example, the skin is now a picture of my own character. And that obviously looks great, right? My model looks perfect right now. There is nothing you can say to make me think otherwise. But that allows you to give tattoos and everything else of the sort. So as earlier, right, you can draw directly on the model itself. So let it load for a bit. Vroid is a bit slow actually. But now I can draw on the model, right? So now I can export that and be like, hey, this is where the tattoo is now, right? Like I can draw a scuffed dragon or whatever here right now, right? Export it, get into my actual art program, put it in the correct place, re-import it. And that allows you to, make tattoos, make custom, skins. Technically custom skins. I don't know. But yeah, you can make your character look whatever like the hell you want, This actually is something I really would suggest, like changing your texture for your skin and your face, and maybe your hair as well, because that will really set you apart from other Vroid characters. Because one of the syndromes, right, is every Vroid character looks like every other Vroid character, and that's something I've heard from people I've been teaching. But that's mainly because people don't put enough effort into, making their own textures and everything. But if, let's say you wanna not put in any or much effort, as I have obviously done for my model, right? You can get a semi-decent model within a few minutes, a semi-decent custom model with custom proportions, custom everything pretty much, right? And it's nice. Okay, so now that we have, the skin and the hand and a tattoo for our character, right? We have a bunch of custom clothing right here with a bunch of different settings which you can change for them. For example, right here is the one I use, and you can change how puffy or how broad the shoulders are, a bunch of other things. And not safe for work. Okay. Sorry about that, everyone. Very sorry. But you have a bunch of these clothing options. You can't actually 3D model your clothing inside the program itself. However, as with everything else, what you can do, right? What you can do is customize it by adding, you by adding a bunch of things which you can import. There's not much to import right now, right? However, at the same time, you can import custom textures. So, for example, there's a bunch of actual, what is it, PNGs, which you can download from the internet, which do like circumvent this stuff right here, and basically allow you to turn like this student's uniform right into a suit, into a T-shirt, into whatever else you may want for your thing, um, as well as changing your ribbon right to a different shape entirely. I don't know what you guys want, right? But like you can recolor the ribbon, you can reuse the textures and like the models that are right here. Because if let's say you're not good at 3D modeling, what you can do, right? Oh no, oh no, the ban is incoming. But yeah, if you do want to reuse the models and like like the textures right here and everything, right? You can do that, and then you can like customize all this stuff, get your like own clothing, right? And if like let's say you really want to have like custom pants, right? I'm gonna show you something you can do with the pants right here. You can actually erase things on the default layer to make them transparent. So now I can show skin on my character by, making this transparent, and now you can see through his pant leg right here. So like for example, that could work for like rips, or like if you want like impartial clothing, or if you want anything else of the sort, you can make a transparent layer for this stuff. So the model has a lot of ability to like, change what you want, right? So for example, hey, I want, a giant gash through my character's like shirt or something right here, right? That's fine too. And now that I've messed up my character like entirely, right? We have a bunch of outline things for like screenshots, rim outlining, a bunch of other things, like how to do all this stuff. This thing honestly isn't too important, other than if you want like to change your eyes slightly. But shading, this stuff doesn't really matter for most programs, but you can change how your hair shades. So for example, I can make it so that the shadow is more pronounced, right? I can make the outline thicker, right? So now the outline of this is like closer to something you would see like in an anime versus something without any outline at all. That's really a stylistic thing. I won't really tell you what to do there. And then once you're done with your character, right? Like once I'm done with this flawless character, right? I will show you how to export it. So first, right, you go to export, right? And then you can pretty much ignore everything, right? Click export, put your name, Froggo. This guy's name will be Froggo, author, Toilan, 02. Yeah, good enough. So now it's gonna be an actual file, so I'm gonna call him Froggo, alright? Okay, now it's gonna be processing everything. Let me just test something for a moment and see if you can see all this stuff. Okay, export. Okay. Wait, can you see this? You cannot see this. Okay. So now I'll be sharing my screen instead. Screen focus. Okay, here we go. So now you can see my entire screen. So you export, right? And then you can put it into a file on your thing itself, right? Like inside your storage file or whatever file you want, right? And then once you want to import the model, right? You go into a program like VC Face, right? You add avatar, you find the correct one, right? So his name was Froggo, right? And look, wow, he's automatically rigged. He works as an actual model now. Although he might be a bit too close, I can move it around. And now look, his hair is animated, he's a working character, he's scuffed as hell, but yeah. It's just that easy to rig your own model. You see the outline, everything's working correctly. There's the shading, there's the different colored hairs, there's the clothing, which is semi see-through. We have expressions on him now, so shift 1, I think. There we go. Yeah, so we have expressions on him now. We have eye tracking, so I'm gonna look to the left without moving my head. Now I'm gonna look to the right. We have eye tracking, eyebrow tracking, and everything else you may need inside of this program. This program right here is what I use personally. It's called VC Face, and it's a very good character animator. And yes, my character is the most powerful character in the world. But yes, this is obviously the best model you can possibly have. Don't even try. And yeah, if you guys want to see some of my other scuffed models, right? This one I actually tried a bit harder on. This is Pepe El Pez. Um, and yeah, you can see that the hair is actually a lot more animated here. Interestingly, right here where you see the hair beads or whatever, I don't know what you call them. Uh, curls? Not curls. I don't know. You guys know what I'm trying to talk about, right? But this part right here, that's actually multiple tiny hairs. However, I put the same bone going through the entire thing. Yeah, braids. So those braids were actually caused by me going through the entire thing with one single bone texture. So now they act as one single hair, you know? This isn't one continuous hair. Instead, it's multiple hairs like in succession. However, together, right, they turn into one bigger hair, I guess, you know? That's kind of a scuffed way to talk about it, but, you know. And there's a bunch of other things you can do. So example of having every single texture customizability, right? Hello. But yes, you can make every single texture on the model custom. A bit terrifying, but you know, do with that what you will. Do with that what you will. I'll go back to my normal model now and show you some of the official examples for this stuff. Yeah, I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna save it. Save as Froggo. Froggo. Okay. Surprisingly, this program is kind of scuffed in that you can't actually access other models. The only thing you can do, right, is you can close out of your model, right? You can close out your model and open it up again, Vroid Studio, right? So now I'll actually show you the professional example so you don't see something super scuffed, right? Hair example male. Okay. I may or may not have done a few terrifying things in this program. I apologize for hurting your eyes. But, okay. So this hair model right here, right, has a bunch of hair layers, right? And like overlapping hairs and everything. And that really allows you to have like a lot of custom and very good looking hair. This is pretty much the hair model that every, what do I say? Every person who, you know, starts VTubing but literally copies and pastes the model uses in their first model, I guess. Okay, yeah, the model loaded in. It takes a while to load in, but okay. So the hair right here is actually all overlapping and everything, and that makes a very good 3D thing. But at the back here, you see how there's these hairs which all look semi-similar. That's because they most likely used a procedural generation hair, right? And then what they did after is right-clicked it and then unprocedurally generated that so they could edit the hairs individually. And then after they've done all the hairs at the back, right, with this this procedural group, right, move it to the correct location. So I'm gonna find it. The center X, no, center Z, center. I don't know. Position? Yeah, position right here, right? Once it's in the correct position, right? And like you've done all the basic stuff you need, right? You can right click your program, right? Convert to freehand, right? And now each one of these nodes you can move individually within like this net right here, you know? So that just allows you to make background hairs very fast, right? And then for the front ground hairs right here, right? They pretty much did all of this by hand. And that and by layering it and making sure that it's like all 3D and everything, right? They made the hair in the front look very good. And then after that, they did bones in the area where bones are needed. They pretty much only did bones in areas where, like, you know, they're close together. So that way they didn't have to animate 50,000 bones. So for this example, this front hair right here is all animated as one area. This area right here is animated as one area, and, you know, etc., etc. I'm fairly sure they might have just done it by using generate bone right here because that automatically does everything for them. However, that is something that you can do. Yeah, this model is obviously way better than mine, but it shows that you do have a lot of potential in making your own model in this program right here. So I'm gonna do wind right here. So now, as you can tell, all the hair is animated fairly well. There's always this, you know, bottom layer right here, which every Vroid model has, and that's just basically like a bottom thing so you don't get like bald hairs. But you can make that invisible if you want, or you can like remove it entirely. So that's always an option. And as you can tell, they didn't fully color the hair underneath it. So yeah, that's how you use Vroid, boys and girls and non-binaries. Do you guys have any questions? If you guys have any questions at all, please ask. I am more than happy to help. Uh, I'll give you guys like a minute while I play around with this stuff. This hair in the center was created by basically, right, adding a freehand group, right, making sure that the net was pronounced from like the center or like whatever, something like this, right, and then drawing something outwards. Well, not inwards but outwards, and then adding a bone to it. Obviously, I cannot do something as good as they can, but you get what I'm trying to show you guys. What is it? Here we go. Vroid is something I would really suggest trying if you're starting out as a VTuber, and then VC Face is the program I suggest. Here we go. And I think that will conclude our tutorial. Just gonna do a there we go. Just gonna do a tiny little thing in the the bot that I have right here to show off everyone, and then we'll end the stream. I hope everyone had fun, and I hope this was useful. I can't really if you guys don't have any questions, I can't really help any further. But if you do have any questions, my Twitter is open. My Twitter DMs are open, as well as my Discord if you can somehow find it through one of my contacts. And through that, if you have anything that you need, or like, you know, anything else or whatever, that is always option. Have a good day too, Ray. I hope you enjoyed. And I hope you start streaming soon, since I know you've been trying to stream for a while, but it's always hard to start up. Starting up is often literally the hardest thing. Also, half metal elf, I like how you are also a elf. As you can tell, my character has elf ears. Kind of. It's like half elf ears more than anything else. And there we go. Congrats for the win, half elf. Or half metal elf. 3. Okay, that's everything I have to say. Goodbye. This VOD will be up on maybe you'll get back one day. I believe in you, Ray. Goodbye, everyone, and that's everything I had to say. This VOD will be on YouTube, and yeah, bye.